Elisabeth Fritzl, locked in the basement of her family's home for 24 years. In the quiet town of Amstetten, Austria, the Fritzl family seemed like any other. Josef Fritzl, a seemingly ordinary man, lived with his wife, Rosemary, and their children in what appeared to be a typical suburban home. Yet, beneath the facade of a conventional family life lurked a horrifying secret. On the fateful night of August 28, 1984, the family's eldest daughter, Elisabeth Fritzl, 18, disappeared without a trace. Her disappearance sent shockwaves through the community, and a frantic search ensued, with family, friends, and authorities joining forces to find her. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the mystery deepened, leaving those who loved Elisabeth in a state of perpetual anguish and uncertainty. Unbeknownst to anyone, including her own family, Elisabeth was being held captive in a hidden inside the basement beneath the very house she had once called home. The basement, converted into a prison, was a nightmarish creation, meticulously constructed by Josef himself. Accessible only through a concealed door in the family's basement, the chamber was a chilling manifestation of his malevolent intentions. Soundproofed and equipped with multiple locks, the basement dungeon was designed to ensure that no cries for help could be heard from outside. It was divided into a series of rooms, where Elisabeth was subjected to the most unimaginable conditions. Within its claustrophobic confines, she lived a life of perpetual fear and isolation. The true horror of Elisabeth's captivity, however, lay not only in her physical confinement but in the psychological manipulation and torment she endured at the hands of her own father. Josef maintained absolute control over every aspect of her existence, dictating her every move and denying her any contact with the outside world. For 24 years, Elisabeth existed in this nightmarish netherworld. She gave birth to 7 children within the dungeon, with Josef as the father of these innocent lives. One of these children died. 3 were adopted by Josef and lived upstairs, while the 3 grew up in darkness and confinement, had no concept of the world beyond the dungeon's walls, a world they had never seen or experienced. The chamber became a crucible of horror, where Elisabeth's physical and emotional suffering knew no bounds. As the years passed, her situation grew increasingly desperate, her hope for rescue dwindling with every passing day. Yet, in the depths of her despair, she clung to the belief that one day, somehow, she and her children might find a way to escape the dungeon's confines and emerge from the shadows that had consumed their lives. Outside, Josef wove an intricate tapestry of lies and deception to explain Elisabeth's disappearance to the world. He claimed that she had joined a religious cult, a story he maintained for decades. He even went to the extent of writing letters in her name to further perpetuate the deception. These efforts were part of his twisted plan to ensure that Elisabeth and her children remained hidden from the prying eyes of authorities and the public. Within the dungeon, Elisabeth struggled to provide for her children as best as she could under the circumstances. She became their mother, teacher, and protector. In the absence of formal education, she taught them basic knowledge and values, giving them some semblance of a normal upbringing. However, this life was devoid of sunlight, fresh air, or the touch of anyone beyond their immediate family. These children had no friends, no exposure to the outside world, and no concept of life beyond the dungeon's walls. Routine became a lifeline within the captive family. A daily schedule of activities, meal times, and chores provided structure and stability within the chaotic and confined space. This semblance of normalcy helped maintain their sanity amidst the ever-present threat of their captor. Elisabeth's emotional and psychological suffering was immeasurable. She endured both physical and sexual abuse at the hands of her captor, her own father. The trauma and despair of her existence were intensified by the constant fear for her children's safety and future. Until on the April 19th, 2008, Josef agreed to seek medical assistance when Kirsten, the eldest daughter of Elisabeth, fell unconscious. Elisabeth assisted him in carrying the ailing Kirsten out of the hidden chamber, giving her a glimpse of the outside world for the first time in 24 long years. However, Josef, in an act of cruel manipulation, forced her to return to the chamber, where she would remain for one more agonizing week. Kirsten was immediately rushed to a local hospital, the Landesklinikum Amstetten, as her condition was gravely serious, with life-threatening kidney failure. Josef, arriving at the hospital later, claimed to have found a note purportedly written by Kirsten's mother. He engaged in discussions about Kirsten's condition. Later, the medical staff discovered inconsistencies in Josef's account, which raised suspicions, prompting them to contact the police on the April 21st, 2008. The police, in response to these concerns, initiated a public appeal through the media, urging the missing mother to step forward and share crucial information about Kirsten's medical history. Law enforcement authorities also reopened the case file regarding Elisabeth's disappearance. Josef reiterated his narrative, insisting that Elisabeth had joined a cult. He also produced what he asserted to be the most recent letter from Elisabeth, supposedly dated January 2008 and posted from the town of Chemnitz. The police reached out to Manfred Wolfart, a church official with expertise in cults. Wolfhard expressed skepticism about the existence of the group Josef Fritzl described and pointed out that Elisabeth's letters appeared to be dictated and strangely composed. On April 26, 2008, acting on a tip provided by a doctor that Josef and Elisabeth were back at the hospital, the police apprehended them within the hospital premises. They were then transported to a police station for further questioning. The immediate aftermath of their rescue was marked by a whirlwind of medical and psychological evaluations. Elisabeth and her children, who had spent the majority of their lives in captivity, were thrust into a world that was at once fascinating and overwhelming. The simple pleasures of daylight, fresh air, and the warmth of human contact were both a revelation and a shock. Medical professionals and therapists worked tirelessly to address the physical and psychological wounds inflicted upon the captive family. Elisabeth, who had suffered unspeakable abuse at the hands of her father, required extensive counseling and therapy to cope with the trauma she had endured. Her children, who had never experienced the outside world, needed to learn basic life skills and adapt to the concept of freedom. The transition to normalcy was marked by small, cautious steps. Elisabeth and her children learned about the world they had been denied for so long. They were introduced to the simple pleasures of life that most people took for granted. The taste of different foods, the feeling of sunlight on their skin, and the joy of making new friends. Support from the community, social workers, and authorities was crucial in helping the Fritzl family rebuild their lives. A network of professionals and volunteers provided assistance in various forms, ensuring that the family's basic needs were met. They also offered protection from the intense media scrutiny and public curiosity that surrounded the case, shielding Elisabeth and her children from prying eyes. The legal proceedings against Josef were watched closely by the world, not only as a quest for justice but also as a means to address the societal issues raised by the case. On March 2009, 3 weeks before his 74th birthday, Josef pleaded guilty to the charges of the murder by negligence of his infant son and grandson, Michael, as well as the decades of enslavement, incest, rape, coercion, and false imprisonment of his daughter Elisabeth. He is sentenced to life imprisonment. The Fritzl case prompted discussions about the need for greater awareness and intervention when it came to child abuse and family violence. It underscored the importance of support networks, both for survivors and for those who may be in a position to report or prevent such atrocities. After the trial, Elisabeth was granted a new identity, with stringent legal measures in place to safeguard her anonymity. Presently, she resides in a secluded Austrian countryside location, a small hamlet whose identity remains confidential and is only cryptically referred to as Village X by the country's media. As of February 2023, her 6 surviving children, who range in age from 20 to 34, have found solace in a life where their bedroom doors are intentionally left ajar. They have undergone regular therapy sessions aimed at alleviating the traumas they endured during their time in captivity. And with that, we have come to the end of our video. Please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and click that notification bell. This is Ben saying, see you next time.